Okay, this is part 2, start of the tour. Remember, you can look around on your device.
Should I know anything?
No, you're doing great.
Is anybody here not from the United States? Yeah. Where are you from? India. Where in India? Mumbai. Good man. Very cool. Thank you.
Sure,
Okay, why I brought you here? When the English initially arrived here, they didn't have any plans on building a fort, all right? It was only after the reception from the Native Americans they realized, hey, maybe if we built a palisade, it would be a really good idea, all right? So if you look over here to your right or in back view, what you would say is a fence, what we call a palisade, those wood posts sticking out of the ground, those are in the original location of where the original palisades were, all right? The fort was originally constructed as a three-sided or triangular fort. Shortly after the fort was built, the English erected 2 additional palisade lines to make it a 5-sided fort. And this was a number of years ago, but we came out to this area here to try to find that extension to the fort, all right? And we found it. Basically what had occurred was they took and built a palisade line from what we call the northern bulwark, or this semicircle here in the fort. And they built a palisade line to a point approximately here in the center of the path. Then another palisade line headed south here to connect with the eastern bulwark of the fort, all right? So all of you, or most of you, are presently outside that extension. I'm inside that palisade extension. Now, at that apex point where those 2 palisades meet, there was another palisade line heading north into the swamp, all right? So the following year, we came out here to try to figure out, okay, what's going on with this palisade line? We started excavating in this area here and came upon a structure, all right? Now, you're out on the frontier, all right? Your last line of defense is that palisade, right? What would you want to do if you had an enemy attacking your fort? What would you want to do with the enemy?
Keep them outside of your palisade.
Or break up the attack, right? The structure that they had erected out here, what you might call a pillbox, all right? We call it a strong point. Essentially, it was an above-ground structure with a cellar. And what was really cool about this feature was it also had a well in the cellar, And after it was excavated, it looked like this, okay? Now, let's say you're out here on guard duty, okay? And you've run out of water, your canteen's empty. You would have to run back into the fort and draw water from the well, right? Well, if you've got a well here right at the place where you're, standing guard, you wouldn't have to do that. You can maintain a watch constantly then, all right? That was really cool to find. We also, the following year, we excavated this portion of the palisade extension. Now, okay, you got the church, you got the churchyard here. What do you think we found in here? Graves. We found a multitude of grave shafts here. Curiously, we found something else. All right. Do I have any farmers here? Oh my goodness. Okay. Sorry. Remember when?
I grew up on it.
Okay.
I have tomatoes.
Remember when I started the tour, I mentioned when the English arrived here, they didn't bring any farmers or backwoodsmen with them, right? After their reception from the Native Americans, they realized, hey, maybe it'd be a really good idea that if we grew our own food, okay? So we excavated this area here, and we found what we call planting furrows, okay, in the ground. Pretty cool, the outline that it looks like, all right? Essentially what you do is you take a hoe, you dig a trench in the ground, you take that dirt that was in the trench, all right, and you pile it up adjacent to the trench, and those earth mounds are what you plant your seeds into, okay? We do use technology here to the extent we use drone. Back in the day, we had to get a truck with a basket on it and take overhead shots. But drone technology now, you can catch these really cool shots, and it's really easy to do. All right. All right. We're going to go inside the fort at present. If you want to follow me in, please.
Let's get a look at this. There you go. Pocahontas. Remember, you can look around on your device.
Oh, not about that.
Interesting.
Okay, we're all now presently located inside the original 1607 fort. As I said before, the palisades that you see surrounding you are in the original location of where the original palisades were. How do we know this? All right, when Bill started excavating here in the eastern bulwark, one of the first things he found, all right, was a series of circles in a line in the ground. Now, if you take a wooden post and you put that post in the ground and you allow that post to decompose, there's a chemical reaction between the soil and the post, all right? The post stains the soil. So what Bill was looking at was the eastern palisade. What does he do? He follows that line north until it stops in the northern bulwark. Digs a little bit to the right, digs a little bit to the left. He picks up the western palisade and follows that all the way to the river. So too here with the southern palisade. Until when you look at the fort in totality, we have over 88% of the fort still here. The only portion of the fort that's been washed away by the river is what we call the western bulwark, or western corner of the fort. And if you go down here to the river, you're going to see a seawall, all right? In the early 1900s, at the request of Preservation Virginia, the Army Corps of Engineers arrives here to construct this seawall, essentially to preserve the remainder of the island from erosion, not knowing that James Fort existed. By putting in the seawall, the Army Corps of Engineers inadvertently preserved the remainder of the fort. You know, I like to tell people that occasionally the Army Corps of Engineers does do good work. And in this case, it was a huge boom because it saved James Fort. Now, here at Jamestown, we kind of have like a 2-for-1. We don't have any Army Corps of Engineers. Here at Jamestown, we kind of have a 2-for-1 deal, all right? Not only do we have the original 1607 fort, but can anybody tell me what was going on in the United States in 1861? Civil War, okay? In 1861, the Confederates arrive here at Jamestown and construct a fort over the very top of the Jamestown site. Again, not knowing that James Fort existed. Just for orientation, okay, this is east, this is west, this is south, and this is north. Can anybody tell me what major city lies upriver from here? Richmond, the capital of the Confederacy. The Confederates were concerned that Union gunboats would come up the river here and attack Richmond. Hence, they locate the fort here. The fort never saw any action. The Peninsula Campaign had started. The Confederate forces were needed elsewhere, so the fort was subsequently abandoned. The only problem with this was for the archaeologists, when the Confederates erected their fort, they took all of the surrounding earth and piled it up into a huge series of earthworks in order to put their guns behind. And we will see some of those earthworks when we go through the Western Palisade. We had to excavate through those earthworks in order to get down to the Jamestown level. All the way, we're finding thousands and thousands of artifacts from the 17th century. They're important to us, but they're not as important as if we would have found them in their original location. Okay? Now, I've been here a little over 19 years. My first 13 had been spent out here in the field doing field archaeology. And being in the field with the general public, looking over your shoulder, you tend to hear the same questions like, oh. We got to the point where we were actually thinking of putting up a board, and then, when the person just kind of... Why are you digging where you're digging? How deep do you dig? And what are you looking for when you're digging? All right? First question, why are you digging where you're digging? Once Bill found the limits of the Palisades, he knew what was interior of the fort, he knew what was exterior of the fort. Where do you think he's going to start digging first? Interior of the fort, right. Remember, we don't have any blueprints of the original fort, we don't have any photographs of the original fort. We do have some written documentation, but it's Old English, it's kind of hard to interpret. So the only way we're going to know what the footprint of the original fort looked like is to excavate everything inside the fort. Second question, how deep do you dig? Okay, everybody can see we're right here next to the James. Everybody's thinking every so often the James will flood, deposit fresh soil on the land. After years and years, all that soil builds up. That's a geological thing that happens over eons, okay? The only soil here has either been moved around by the colonists building their fort, by the Confederates erecting their fort, or by us doing landscaping on the site, all right? We are only going to dig as deep as the colonists dug to, all right? There's no point in digging any deeper because all you're going to go dig into is what we call subsoil, and all you're going to find there is oyster shells and rocks, okay? So we dig only as deep as the colonists dug to. Now the third question, what are you looking for when you're digging, all right? And I'm sure everybody's seen the Discovery Channel. I'm sure everybody's seen the archaeologists in the field with their little trowels. Yes, we are looking for artifacts, but we're also historical archaeologists, all right? We're trying to get an idea of what life here inside the 1607 fort was like. Now, immediately you probably think to yourself, let's see, the colonists arrive here, they probably build like log cabins to protect themselves from the elements, all right? That's a Norwegian thing, all right? The structure that the English who arrive here from Norfolk, Suffolk, Isle of Wight are typical of the kind of construction that you see behind me here, right? It's called mud and stud or post and ground construction. Essentially what you do is you dig a hole in the ground, put a wooden post in, and then you backfill around that post. And what as archaeologists we're trying to find is, let's say that one post is adjacent to another post, which turns into a line of posts. And that line turns into a rectangle. What you're then looking at is a structure, all right? Why I brought you all here is you're looking at or in front of the most important structures that we found here inside the fort. Now, I'm going to have to go inside here for a minute, but if you want to come up next to the wall here, I have to give you information from inside. being here so long you forget, when did we do this? All right, this was about 14 years ago. Basically what we had done was excavated this area here, and it had come to about this location. And we had uncovered 3 very large, very deep post holes. We had never seen this before. I could literally stand at the bottom of one of these post holes and barely stick my head up above ground level, all right? There is written documentation that the first permanent Protestant church here in the New World was a structure 24 feet wide by 60 feet long. Now, believe it or not, we were in a bar one night, and somebody came up with a brilliant idea. Hey, let's measure between centers on the post. 12 feet. 12 feet is 24 feet. You measure the impost out there at 60 feet. Ladies and gentlemen, what you're standing in front of is the first permanent Protestant church here in the New World. All right? And what's really cool is, this is the chancel, or the forward part of the church, right? Chancel rail. Where I'm standing right now is where John Rolfe and Pocahontas were standing when they got married here inside this church. Wow! It's
Wow.
cool! I think it's cool.
Yep. It is cool.
Stop with the photographs. I mean, it's... All right.
Is that all?
No!
Okay, we'll do part 3 next.